name's Vince from mymatevince.com, and in this video today I'm going to do my best to try and fix this PlayStation 4 Slim. But I think it's going to be unfixable because it has the blue light of death. So when you turn it on, it just pulsates blue, and then unfortunately it doesn't do anything. Now, watching Tronics Fixes videos and also looking on the internet, mostly I think this is caused by the solder balls under the APU, the main chip. So when you turn it on, it's doing a check to see that it can see different parts of the system. So I presume like the hard drive, the disk drive, etc. And if it doesn't see them, it just keeps pulsating blue. Now apparently it needs a reball to fix it. But then other people say even when you reball it, it's happened because of the heat cycles of the chip getting really warm, really cold, really warm, really cold, and even if you reball it, it's still only a fix that will last X amount of time. So I don't really know what to take from that. What I am wondering is, how does everybody know it's definitely a fault with the APU if, for example, there's traces going to the hard drive or some other component or something which is not allowing the signal to pass through to the APU from the disk drive or the hard drive or the Wi-Fi module or whatever. That's what I'm thinking in my mind, but obviously if the professionals out there are saying it's unfixable, then I've got to take it as read that it's unfixable, but I'm going to give it my best go. And the reason why is I would never ever buy a blue light of death on eBay, but this belongs to my best friend John, who I've known since I was about, well, I went to primary school with him, and we've been just best friends ever since. He was my best man, I was his best man. We've been like inseparable throughout the years, even though he lives quite a long way away from me now. What we still do is we game together. And then the other night we were setting up a gaming night. He ordered golf. He said, let's have a go at 18-hole golf, and I was like, yeah, sounds good. Arranged to like get it set up for 10:30 or whatever at night, and then yeah, I think he went to make a cup of tea or get a beer or something, and then he said he'd come back, and basically the PlayStation, it was downloading the game, the PlayStation then just had the flashing blue light and it had turned off the TV. He couldn't do anything, couldn't press any buttons, wasn't working when you held it down, so he just pulled the power from the wall, and then when he plugged it back in, all that's happening is the blue light of death. And I thought, okay, not such a big deal, we'll put it into safe mode, that should fix it. He was trying to safe mode. I also, because we were doing a video call, he was even I even got him to pull out the hard drive and then try safe mode. Nothing was working. So I said, well, send it down to me, and then what I'll do is I'll try and fix it, and if I can't, I'll use this one as spares. And I've got a beat up PlayStation 4. I don't know if you've seen the video, the one with multiple faults that I got from eBay, that I wouldn't really be happy selling that one because it had so much wrong with it. But it is actually working, so what I'll do is I'll send that one to him in exchange for this one, and then we can carry on our gaming nights. But what I would like to do is fix this one up, because it is this one has never been opened, and the weird thing is this has been babied. This has really been looked after. It would have had less than 200 hours use on the thing. It hasn't been dropped, kicked around. The thing is immaculate, so really there's no reason it should have failed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it apart just in case I can see something obvious, might be able to see a burnt component or something, and then I am going to measure it against my PlayStation Slim here. Now my one I got slightly before him, and my one's been opened up to try and fix another one. Now the model number of my one is a CUH2016A, and John's one is a CUH2116A. So I'm not sure about the differences on the inside, but I definitely know, I think it was the power supply is different because I had came across this problem before. But anyway, let's open it up and see what's happening with it, and I'm also just going to show you the blue flashing light fault. Oh, there you go, okay. Now watch. Now there's nothing up on the TV, I'll show you that in a minute. Now I think when I was doing the WhatsApp video call with him, I think it just kept on doing this. See, if I did the same on my one now, it would go to white. Now I know under the camera it does look ever so slightly white, but it's not, it is blue. But you can see there's nothing happening on TV. And it's not going to be a display issue, because it still should go to white down here even if the HDMI cable is unplugged. Now I'm using the HDMI cable and the power cable from my known working PlayStation 4 Slim. There you go, can you see that? It just turned itself off. Right, now let's try to put it in safe mode. So when I hold it down, from memory it should beep, then it should beep again about 8 seconds later, and that should put it into safe mode, but that doesn't work either. So watch this. Okay, we've got the blue light this time. Let's keep holding it. See, it should have done the second beep by now. I'll keep my finger on it for ages just in case. There you go. Right, it's just gone off again, but then again, that is because I had my finger on it for so long. So yeah, it's really unfortunate. And even then, see, it beeped, but it didn't do anything here. Check button's working. So do you know what I'm sort of thinking? I know that on the older PlayStation 4, you can do a bodge where you put washers on to put pressure down on the main APU. And it's a kind of short-term fix. It might work a day, it might work a week, it might work a year. Now, the thing is, John will be getting the PlayStation 5 when it comes out, so even if this was only to work for so many months, it would still be better than nothing. So what I think I might do is have a look around the place, and if I can't get anywhere, I'm thinking about physically putting pressure down on the APU to see whether we then get the white light. And then maybe I can bodge something up to put extra pressure on that APU. Because if those little solder balls have cracked, then by putting extra pressure down, I mean, I know there's a chance of breaking the chip, but it's not working anyway. I'm wondering whether there'll be a way that we could, you know, actually get them to connect up again. So look, so it is actually turning itself off, so it doesn't stay on there forever. So I think to begin with, what I'm going to do is I am going to take out the hard drive, and I'm just going to see if that makes any difference whatsoever. So I'm just going to kill power to it. And there's a little screw you have to undo here. Right, and that will allow us to slide it out. So my thinking is, if for some reason this was putting some weird kind of fault on it, where it was stopping it from working, then by unplugging it, we should still be able to get into safe mode, shouldn't we? Even with nothing, you know, even with no hard drive in there, we should be able to get to safe mode, because that'd be the same as replacing your hard drive. And then you'd have to update it with a little USB stick. Right, so I'm going to hold it down and try to put it into safe mode. Well, I might as well leave that out of it. I think it's time we take it over to the blue mat now, and let's get this thing apart. I'm wondering if this is going to be the annoying model with the little plastic welds in, because my one has screws to take it apart. But I think the next ones after that, which I think is this one here, has the annoying plastic welds. So it's kind of, once you take it apart, it's never going to go back together as well as it was in the factory. There you go, it's turned itself off again. Right, okay, let's get this thing apart. Yeah, I think they're the plastic welds, you see, these ones here. You can see it's all very clean. Well, all the ribbon cables and everything are in their place. Everything looks like it's where it should be. To get rid of these little plastic welds, I'm just cutting them with these little cutters here. It's a real shame that they did that rather than just putting screws in there, because really, how much money is that going to save? Unless it's more to do with time, because that's surely only going to save a couple of pence. Yeah, it's a lot harder to actually open, and then it's going to be awkward to close again, isn't it? Right, okay, so again, everything is just perfectly clean. There's no reason why this should have overheated. Look at that. There's not one bit of dust. Well, okay, sorry, that's a lie. There is a tiny bit of dust on that fan, but look at that heatsink. You can see right the way through it. So why did this fail? A small part of me is wondering whether it could be power supply related. The only thing is mine's got a different power supply than this. From memory, I had to swap the pins. I had to take this off and swap it over to get it to work. But I suppose that could be an option, couldn't it? Let's strip it down further to begin with. So it looks like these silver ones are the self-tappers that go through the metal into plastic, and then there's a load of black ones here which are machine screws which just screw two bits of metal together. Yeah, and just to make it more complicated, there's also silver ones which are machine screws that also screw bits of metal together as well. Right, so that's the fan, and the disk drive separated from it now. Okay, so they're all in place. Little thermal pads. And here we have the clamp. So this is what I'm suspecting is going to be faulty, the main chip under here. Right, so I'm just thinking that's on there like so, so that's putting pressure on the middle of it there when that's screwed in. So, I mean, would it be possible to put a washer there? Would that pull it in more? Or does it need more pressure on the actual other side itself, pushing down? Let's take this off here. And the thermal paste is still wet. So it's amazing really, because you can really see how small the slim board actually is. Right, the bad news is that the first impressions are I can't see anything that's like badly burnt or anything on the board. No signs of water damage or anything like that, but then again John would have told me if that was the case. Yeah, it just looks perfect, doesn't it? It just looks perfect. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the eye loop and I'm going to look all around this now just to see if I can see anything that doesn't look normal. Well, I've looked closely with this everywhere and it all looks fine. The only thing I did see was just up by the connection for the hard drive. There was just tiny little bits of solder, just tiny little bits here. Can you see? Just kind of like a splat had occurred. But I can't see any splats anywhere else on the board, so that's got nothing to do with it. So I think, obviously, see, it could be loads of things. If this is looking for all the different parts on the board, then if there was a resistor somewhere not allowing the path to go through, if it was like open for whatever reason, then I presume that could cause it. But if most people are saying it's APU related, which is this big chip here, I think what I'm going to do to start with is, I think I'm going to put the power supply back into it here, and I'm going to see if there's a way that I can put pressure on this downwards while turning it on. Yes, it's going to overheat, but I'm wondering if I could get to the white light before it overheats. I'm not sure how quick it's going to overheat with nothing on it there. I might not even be able to, I'm pretty sure on the edge here I would be able to hold on to it without burning my fingers. So let's get it set up, and then just before I turn it on, I'll start filming again. Actually, before I set it up, I just want to show you all the balls under this chip. So you can see there now, when you look under here, can you see all the dots? They're all just loads. So under here there'll be like hundreds of balls like that going all the way around, all through the middle. And then every one of these traces is being connected to a ball somewhere under here. So it just allows, imagine now years ago you had a chip with legs sticking out, it just allows much more legs essentially, because you've got legs all the way underneath it as well. So if you have a look on all sides, you can see there. So because it's unleaded solder, the thing is, it's more, I suppose, more brittle, so it can fracture. So with the constant heating, cooling, then if one of those balls were to become fractured and not make the connection anymore, then it's not gonna, you're gonna have the blue light of death. But what I'm thinking is, by putting pressure down on it, it's still fractured, but look, if we can just put pressure down to make the contact, it's not melted together, it's just like friction, it's just like pressure holding it together, then that might give us, for example, the white light. And if it is, there's no point then, if when I hold this down I get the white light, there's no point in me spending hours trying to compare this board against my board, checking resistors and chips and resistances and stuff, when it's a problem with the APU. Now here goes. So I'm going to put pressure down on this here, and I'm going to turn it on. Right, so it's got the blue light at the moment. You can't even see the blue light, can you? Right, so it's pulsing. But the fan hasn't actually kicked in. I have got the fan plugged in, so I would have thought surely the fan should be spinning. So that says to me there's an issue there, isn't there? Because the fan only spun for about a split second, then stopped. Now I've got pressure on that corner, and that corner, but not the corner down here. Yeah, apologies, you can't see the light from here. No, it's still blue. Right, and this is getting too hot to touch now. Right, and it's turned itself off. Right, so I wonder, is it turning itself off because the fan's not spinning and it's overheating? Would it be overheated? I know obviously it's overheating now because nothing's on, but remember before it also used to turn itself off. I wonder, is that because the fan is not spinning? And then it's overheating. I mean, obviously it's a blue light anyway, so it's not an overheating issue. Just going to use the rubber off this to actually lean down on the chip itself a bit. There we go. So the fan spins, but then stops. Right, I don't know whether it is going to be related to just as simple as the joins underneath there. Do you know what? I think I might look into the power supply. Just purely because the fan's not spinning up at all, is it? It's just giving one spin and then giving up as if it hasn't got enough power to do that. Right, good news. I have actually got a spare power supply that I think may fit it. Now, the model number is different. This is an ADP160ER, while this one here, this is my friend's one, is an N16160P1A. But if you have a look, the DC output's the same. 4.8 volts at 1.5 amps and 12 volts at 13 amps. And this one here is 4.8 volts, 1.5 amps, 12 volts at 13 amps. So I think the orientation is the same as well, because the cable goes in the same way. And if you watch this, if I go between the negative of the negative of this one here, going in here, and if I go on the second pin here, I've got continuity. And if I go for the negative here and the second pin here, I've got continuity. And I'm pretty sure on my one it was flipped the other way. So I'm going to try to put this one in and see what happens. Right, okay, so obviously it is going to overheat again, but let's see now if the fan spins for longer than just a second or two. So I'm plugging it in now. No, can you see it just did it and then stops again? Right, so it's not going to be a power supply issue, is it? I wonder, am I getting any voltage coming out of the... No, see, look, I'm not even getting any voltage coming out of here either. The USB ports. So it's definitely not a power supply problem. Right, I think what I'm going to have to do is take out my board and start to trying to get readings between the two. Right, just out of curiosity, this is my board, but I've just connected up John's fan disk drive, but I have done my power supply. But remember, we've swapped power supplies on his anyway to make a difference. I just want to see now, without the heatsink and stuff, does it still go to a white light? And also, does the fan spin when you start it up? Because remember, on John's one, it just spins for like 2 or 3 seconds. So I've just plugged it in now, and now let's just tap it on. Right, it didn't do anything. Let's tap it again. There we go. So fan's spinning. There you go. Yeah. So 100% the fan. Oh, but look how quick it overheated. Wow, that overheated really quickly. So that says to me that definitely the right amount of power is not getting to John's one, because it's not overheating that quick, is it? I wasn't expecting that to overheat so quick. Right, I'm going to turn it on again now just to see if the fan kicks up again. Right, it didn't turn on. Here we go. Yeah, look, the fan again. I would have thought it would have lasted longer before overheating. I really did. That's amazing, isn't it? Well, I'm going to just get my meter and maybe, I can't test for voltages around the place, but it doesn't stay on long enough to test for voltages, you see. Maybe I can just check for resistance and stuff. Look for a difference between two of them that might pinpoint something. It's only been a few minutes later and I haven't done any further testing yet. But I've just been thinking about these tantalum capacitors. Now on the PlayStation 3, a lot of times in the past people thought it was the GPU or the CPU that was failing, when in fact it's the tantalum capacitors. And when you have the flashing red light of death, sometimes by changing the tantalum capacitors it will make it work again. Now, I'm not saying this is anything to do with it, but if you look at my board, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. They're all labelled up 470, so I'm thinking they might be 470 microfarad. If you look at John's board here, the faulty one, there's only 3. Yeah? And if you have a look at the older boards here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 this side, and also 7 this side as well. Again, I don't know if they're all going to be feeding the main chip or not. And on this one here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've got 6 there as well. So I'm wondering, could it be, obviously they're reducing, they're reducing the amount of components and it's working, but maybe now would it be possible that it's easier for it to not provide enough power into it, because if the capacitors are failing, possibly, if these have gone slightly now out of spec, maybe it's not providing enough power in. So I think what I'm going to do is, I personally don't believe it's fixable now with my skills. Obviously in the future other people might come along and say, yeah, it's this chip, or it's this chip, or it's this RAM chip over here, this one here, or this one here, for example, in which case then I with that sort of knowledge I would be able to fix it, but from the knowledge I've got at the moment, I don't think I'm going to be able to fix this. So I think what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to get my hot air station. I'm going to take off these 3 tantalum capacitors, and I think I'm just going to take some random ones off the board here, just to see if it's made any difference or not. I don't want to mess with my board here. Obviously the capacitors I take off this one might also be faulty, but I think it's kind of unlikely. I could always try maybe swapping some more again after that, just to see if it does anything different at all. Maybe if it was to liven up a little bit more, then I might be more inclined to, to take that further or to look into it more. See, I could even just put some electrolytics on top of that, just to see if that would make any difference or not. That's what I'm thinking anyway. Right, so I've taken the 3 off there, which are now down here. Let's pop them on here and just see what's going to happen. So I'm going to add some flux, take these ones off, and then let's see. It's already broken, so I haven't really got much to lose. and we know it's not the hard drive, and we know it's not the power supply. So it's more and more things are pointing towards it being this, or at least something which most people don't attempt to repair. And I presume people in the past must have spent a long time on this, because they'd be able to pick up these consoles sort of cheaper than other ones with other faults. I've got my air sets of 480 degrees Celsius, and actual airflow is 6 out of 8. Right, my soldering iron's not on, but I'm just going to try to melt a little bit of solder just onto them while the pads are still warm. A little bit of leaded solder. Right, now I'm going to put the other ones on. And I'm making sure I'm putting them on the correct orientation. Right, they're all on. We're just going to let the board cool, and then we'll put it back together, see if it's made any difference. Okay, so they're on there now, and I just cleaned it with some IPA. So I was thinking possibly they need less capacitors now, because maybe the chip is more energy efficient, but it might well be. I don't know whether the chips are exactly the same or not, but if you have a look, can you see around here you've got kind of like resistor packs, or maybe some sort of capacitor packs or something, and can you see there's loads of empty ones where they haven't been put on, and they correspond to the exact same ones there. So you think if they were to redesign the chip, then would it have the exact same missing packs on both sides? I think it's unlikely. So I'm just wondering, well, obviously the less components you save money, and it all makes a difference, like a 20p here, and another 20p here, 20p here, it all adds up. So do they, as the revisions go on and on, do they try to sort of take more and more components out, and if it's still stable, settle at that? Or, for example, are these chips just better designed and they don't need as much or something? It's, I wonder. So I sort of think as the revisions go on that it gets more reliable, because I'm kind of thinking of the PlayStation 3. Like if you think about the Super Slim compared to the original fat version, then the Super Slim is going to be more reliable. But obviously, as well as time goes on, the prices of the consoles normally come down a bit, or they want to make more money out of them. So they're going to be starting to remove components that are not really that necessary. But maybe as tolerances move a bit, maybe this board's got a much more chance of lasting for longer with more components. Or am I completely wrong thinking that? I'm not sure. Right, I'm just going to put this back together and then see if it's doing anything different than before. So we're looking for it to do something similar to my one, which is basically the fan ramps up straight away and then cuts out. Let's plug it in and let's see if it's made any difference. Right, first time, no. No. Dead again straight away. Ah, what's causing this? Is it just as simple as this, the APU here? I can feel heat there. Yeah, I mean that's much hotter than my one was getting, but my one would have cut it out by now. Oh well, I don't think it was anything to do with those capacitors. Well, I'm still here, still working on it. So I'm kind of wondering about the fan. because we know that the fan only spun for a couple of seconds before giving it up. So maybe the fan's not getting the power it should do. So what I've been doing is I've been trying to trace the contacts from the fan. So we've got 3 contacts on the fan. One of them in the middle is just a ground. But then we've got one of them which goes over to these little contacts here on this side of the board. So if I just go between here and here, you can see that the pins here are jumping over to this side of the board. Now this side of the board brings us again to over here. Yeah? And that isn't the ground side, that's the positive side of those caps. And we already know that all of this is linked into here because I changed these capacitors over earlier. So I'm wondering if whatever's responsible for giving this area power is not giving it power. So for example, maybe it's not a problem with the APU, maybe it's a problem with the power going into the APU. So if the same rail is giving the fan power that then goes in to feed this side of the APU, then it's not going to turn on, is it? And maybe that's why it doesn't shut off straight away either. You know, it's whether we've got the heatsink on or off, it seems to just power, it seems to shut itself off after about whatever it is, 15 seconds or something. I haven't actually timed it. But that's what I'm wondering now. So if I can find out why the fan is possibly not getting power, is the power coming from the APU back out this way, or is it coming from something else, giving the power to here, then going into the APU? I don't know. So that's just what I'm working on at the moment. Well, I'm not sure if it actually means anything, because it just all looks like it's coming from here. So obviously this is where the 12 volts come into it. Now remember I said that the fan was linked into this area here. Well look, if we flip the board back over, and if we now go from the contact here on this side here, I found it coming up over this side of the board here, up here. So if I go on there now, you can hear it's coming on there, and then basically I found it also coming onto this big load of rails here. Yeah, and that goes into this chip here, and also these big contacts here go through the board here to this side here. So now look, if I was to go onto the rail here, you can hear that it's coming up here, yeah, and all on this this rail here, which goes to this contact here. So that's a bit unclear to me, because we've got 12 volts here, so why is the fan not spinning over this side here? Do you know what I mean? Why is the fan not spinning over here if we've got contact between here and here? So I'm not sure. Does the APU tell the power supply to keep providing 12 volts? I know it will cut it off when it gets too hot, but surely during that time when it's not too hot, won't it just be a constant supply of 12 volts? It's confusing me now, so really I can't prove anything between there and here, because we've got continuity between there and here going all the way through the board. So maybe the fact that the fan doesn't spin isn't something that I can actually work with. It's a shame. I thought I was onto something there. I'll keep looking. I've put it back together just to see, you know, now this is a different power supply in it, and also I want to see if it's getting any power to the USBs. Now this is interesting. It's fully taken in the disc, and also the disc is spinning up. It lasts for about 20 seconds or so, and then it will fail. So watch this now. If I turn it on, but look, no power gets to the USB stick, and also the fan stops after a few seconds, just like the original fault. So I'm sure it's not the power supply. So watch this now. Turning it on now. Okay, and also it doesn't always turn on. So let's do it again. There you go. But I don't have to unplug it after each time. Now look, so the blue light's flashing down here, which you probably can't see, but you can see the reflection off my finger there. Now watch this, put the disc in, and it fully takes it in, and makes the right sounds, and spins up. But yet look, no power to the USB whatsoever. So you would think by now power would be in the USB. On my one, even though without the heatsink my one shuts off after a few seconds, just before it shuts off the USB livens up. So we've got no power to the fan or the USB from what I can see. I think that this isn't a problem with the APU. I think it's a problem with some of the power rails feeding certain bits of the circuit, and that certain bit of the circuit is probably also feeding the APU. So he's still going now, and then what will happen is, after a while, it will cut off, makes a bit of a clicking noise. Also, I've got the hard drive in now as well. So basically, I've got everything in this like I should have. I've got the hard drive in here as well, because I just wanted to double check now by going into safe boot and stuff. It won't let me go into safe boot, and it's still not connecting to a display. I've got my little portable monitor down here. So, yeah, I think that's quite interesting. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to count how long it stays on for, a timer on my watch, and also I'm going to eject the disc as well. Right, that lasted exactly 55 seconds before it actually shut off completely. So, I feel like we're making, I'm not making any progress, I just feel like I'm understanding the fault more, but I'm still actually no nearer to fixing it, and I still don't think I will be able to fix it, but I'm having a bit of fun along the way. So I'll keep looking at it, and then hopefully I might discover some other things. Right, so I'm just tracing back from the USB ports because it's so simple to do. And if you have a look, can you see from here, it goes up on the tracks here, this one here, comes across here, goes up on these tracks here. And these all, look, these outer 3 tracks all lead into here, which I believe is a Southbridge chip. Now, okay, so you might think that this could be faulty here, and maybe it is. The thing is though, I'm not getting any traces from the fan. You know, the contacts from the fan here. I'm not finding them coming up anywhere around here, but of course this is BGA, so it could be coming to one of the ones underneath it. I haven't gone across all of them, but I've just been randomly going around here, and it's not coming up here either. But that's what I'm looking at the moment. I'm concentrating around here because we haven't got anything on the USB and we haven't got anything on the fan, so maybe it's an issue with this chip here, or something powering this chip possibly. Right, I'm going to start swapping some chips over. I'm starting with this little one here, purely because when I do power from when I do continuity from the fan, it's heading off in this direction. So I've put some flux on it now, and I'm just heating it up. And luckily I've got the same chip on my old donor boards as well. Right, so I'm going to put it back together now, test it, see if it's made any difference, and then I'll probably move on to another chip as well. And because I'm pretty sure it's a power supply problem, so maybe one of these chips somewhere is not generating the correct voltage for that rail. My problem is that when I connect it, because everything has to be connected to it, otherwise it's going to overheat in, well, you know, I've got 55 seconds on this one, or on a working one you've got about 3 or 4 seconds. It means I can't really do anything. Do you know what I mean? I can't measure voltages because it's not going to give me enough time. If I could just have this board powered, then I could go round and I could be like, oh, the good board, I've got 5 volts coming out on this leg here, but on this one I haven't. But I haven't got that option here, because you need to put it back together with all the heatsink and stuff on it to actually get it to work. So it's a bit of a pain. Right, I've got power going back into it now. Let's see if we've got any difference. So what I want to see is I want to see that fan stay on. No, which it's not going to do. Right, so that's definitely not that chip. Okay, well, you can see what I'm going to do from now on. I'm just going to be changing over the small little chips that I can change over, hoping that one of them will be responsible for this. I've just changed over this little chip here. I could be completely wrong. This might have nothing to do with the voltage rails. I'm just thinking that the 12 volts is coming in here. It's definitely going around this chip here, so maybe this is the thing that reduces it down to 3.3 volts for one rail and 5 volts for another rail. I don't really know. It's an easy chip to change over anyway. So now I'm going to pop this back in, and let's see if it works now. Here goes. Let's see now if it's going to do anything different. Oh, so annoying. I can kind of tell when the fan starts spinning that it's not going to do anything, because there's just no oomph behind it. Right, okay. Yeah, nothing there. Let's just check USBs. No, nothing with the USBs either. I'm wondering, is it the Southbridge? Would reflowing it make a difference? Do you know what? Maybe I should just put pressure down on it and see if that makes a difference to begin with. Yeah, that's what I'll do, because there's nothing. I can't change every single chip and component on the board. It might not even be a chip, it might be a little transistor or something. I just want to make sure I'm staying well away from the power supply. Right, here goes. So I'm going to be putting pressure down now. Am I going to be able to turn this on here? Let's put pressure down on this. Can't see the power switch. Okay. Right, I've still got a blue flashing light. I can't see the fan. I can hear the hard drive spinning, or I can feel it. No, the fan's not spinning. Yeah, that cable's come out there, isn't it? Yeah, hard drive's definitely spinning. No, exactly the same as before. Right, I'm wondering. Well, I'm going to have a look at a few more chips first, and then I think I might try to reflow the south bridge. Right, I've now changed over this big chip, which is right next to the south bridge. So now let's connect it up and see what's happening. So it's this one here. Ooh, I've got nothing at all now. Right, let me check my connections. I've been comparing a good board to the bad board, and I have found a difference on something that looks like a diode, but I can't see any line on it, I can just see a dot. But it is connected to the 5V supply coming in. So we've got the 5V from here. This basically jumps all the way across to this area here, which goes into this chip here. Then, you know, the chip that I replaced. Then from one of the legs there, one of the pins, it goes all the way over to this kind of pad thing here. Now, if we compare the two pads on diode mode, this is if it's a diode, but it's testing different between them. So for example now, I can't do it exact because the actual boards are slightly different, but I've been trying to work out what's what. So for example, I've definitely got a short between here and pin 4 on this one here. Don't know where pin 4 is, hold on. Roughly around there, okay? But then basically if we go between, so if we put the red lead to this big pad and then that up there, you can see I'm getting a reading of 0.16, yeah? And now if we swap them over, put the black lead there, I'm getting nothing. It goes to like 1.9 for a second and then drops to nothing, yeah? But now if I do the same over here, so if I put the red lead to there and the black lead to here, can you see I'm getting 1.98, but it's not dropping, it's hanging there. And if I go the other side, I get the same reading. Yeah, so it's that reading here which is abnormal. Now if I go onto this other board here, can you see it's not dropping? When I go onto this board here, this is basically the PlayStation 4 that I've been taking components from. And I've got a similar diode here. Now look at the readings here when I go between here. Can you see open that way? And then the same reading there, you see? And when I go here, watch this, it does for a split second go 1.9. See, 1.98, just for a split second, then goes back to open. So I'm going to take the diode off this one here, and I'm going to place it in here. And let's see if it makes a difference. There's a little marking on it, there's a little dot, and there's a little dot on the board, so I know which way to put it on. And it looks to be exactly the same diode, it's got the same markings as the one on here. So I'm going to swap them over, see if that makes any difference. I've just tested a diode and it's only testing one way round. You know, that's if it is a diode. I don't 100% know. But look, if I go this way round, can you see 1.63? And now I'm going to go this way round. Nothing. So now let's go on to the actual pads. 0.68. So does that suggest that there's something on there which is not correct? It does, doesn't it? So it doesn't look like it's the diode. So from here, I think it jumps over to this rail here, I think. I don't know if it goes anywhere else before then. Right, I'm going to keep tracing it now. I don't think it's even worth swapping a diode over because the diode itself is not faulty. It's something on the board that's giving it that different reading. This is interesting. It's only been a couple of minutes later, but look, you know, I took the diode, let's call it a diode, off this area here. Well look, we've got 6 holes here. They go through the board and then they come up here. Now, I recognise this area here because this is exactly where the fan connection was going to. Do you remember? So we've got the fan connection here, which went up to this area up here. There. And then it went across to here. So it looks like we have 12 volts going into this one, but this one here, I think, is only going to be 5 volts because, hold on one second now, this is the connection, the 5 volt connection coming in. And we've got the 5 volt connection going to, the 5 volt connection is going across, this is the 5 volt connection here, isn't it? So, are we getting somewhere now? So this is 5 volts here. But yet, on this bit here, it's, hold on this bit here it's 12 volts. So is this the thing responsible? Hold on now. So we've got 5 volts here and 12 volts here. Could this be faulty? But then it goes across to here. How does it work its way over to here, I wonder? What does that feed? That feeds all this area. See, I don't know if this area is going to be 12 volts or I suppose it has to be 5 volts because it's 5 volts here on this thing here, isn't it? So I'm getting a bit confused about exactly which direction it's coming from. Do you know what I mean? Is it this area here which is making this 5 volts, or is this 5 volts coming from the connection here? Right, okay, I'm going to see if I can find this component on this board over here. Yeah, it's exactly the same component as the one here, next to that funny diode thing. So I'm going to swap them over, see if that makes any difference. Okay, so I changed over the diode and that little component there. The diode tested fine anyway, but I'm not sure about the other component. Really, I'm completely clutching at straws now because there's no schematics for this. It's pure guesswork. I don't know what any of these things do. I'm pretty certain I've got a problem on the power rail. The problem is I don't quite know how to fault find it when I can't put power into it because I've only got 55 seconds to test. And if I put power into this one, I've got a few seconds to test. So I'm a bit lost as to what to do, especially when it's not showing up as a short. If I had like a short in a capacitor or something, then I'd be able to I'd be able to test for that, or I could put voltage into it and see what gets hot. But I think what's happened here is a component's just failed, like open circuit. So yeah, or something's not making a contact. Anyway, let's see what happens now. No, okay, I might as well turn it straight off because the fan just went off again. Let's just do USB. Nothing there. And just out of curiosity, I just want to see if my disk drive's still working. Well, I can just do this, can't I? Yeah, that's still working. I think maybe it's time to reflow the south bridge chip. Oh, and in case you're wondering about the dodgy thing where you put a washer underneath this, I've tried it. Remember, that's only going to work if, for example, the APU is if the balls have come unattached. And remember, I've already been putting pressure down on the APU and it hasn't made a difference. That fix isn't a great fix anyway, but it didn't make any difference. I used quite a thick washer, but I didn't screw it all the way down, but it would still put more pressure on the APU, bringing it up. So yeah, it's not that's not going to be a fix in this case. Right, so this is the chip here. Let's heat it up and see what happens. There's plenty of flux around that now. And I've taken the nozzle off the end of my heat gun. So it's going to be heating up a bigger area at once. Right, 480 degrees. I'm going to go 5 out of 8. Let's give this a go. See, I've got no way of knowing when it's done, and that's the reason why I like to tap the corner. No, it's not done yet. Right, okay, that definitely moved there. Moved a bit too much, but I might be okay. Right, I'm going to let that cool down. I'm not going to touch it, and then we'll give it another go. Right, that's it cooled down and also cleaned up as well. And amazingly, when I look through the eye loop, the balls are on the outer edge anyway, all intact. Now, haven't got a clue what's going on the inside because it moved a little bit more than I would have liked it to. But the outer ones are definitely intact, so I might have got away with that. Now let's put it back together. It would be amazing if it was working, but I don't think it is. I would just be hopeful now for it to do the same fault as it did before, and then you see I could maybe be able, I might be able to fix it in a revisit video. But yeah, let's see. Right, so that's hard drive in, disk drive in, everything connected, fan connected. So the only thing we haven't done is the heatsink on there, but that doesn't matter because that will just lead to overheating anyway. Right, now let's plug it in and let's see if it's doing anything different. Right, so that's fully in there, and let's plug it in. Just got to move it around this way a bit more. Right, come on now, please, please, please do something. Here we go. Okay, nothing. Oh! Ah! So annoying. It's not that, is it? So it didn't just need a reflow, but it could still be faulty, you see. I'm still wondering if it's something to do with that chip there. But the problem is I can't risk my PlayStation 4 Slim. If I take that off, the chip's quite hard to get hold of. I had a look online at that chip, and basically it is a power management chip, but there's no spec sheet or anything for it. And I think, I can't remember the price for it, I think I seen it was £6 from somewhere. It's one of those things where you have to get from like AliExpress or something. Yeah, it's just doing what it did before. Can I take it any further? I don't believe it's APU. It's gone off now. I think it's something to do with power rail somewhere that's not getting to where it needs to be. I couldn't find that. Do you remember I said about that diode thing? When I took them off here, that started testing the same. It was sort of testing this. When I took the components off here, it was then testing the same as what the faulty board was testing. So I was getting the diode reading on both sides. But then, is that even a diode? I don't know. I don't think I can take this any further. Is there anything else I can do on it? Oh, not sure. I wish it was kind of like the PlayStation 2 where you could leave power in it and it would it doesn't overheat within a few seconds. You know, you can test the components without worry that it's going to overheat immediately. But with this, it just overheats too quick. Right, I will look at it for a little bit longer just to see, but I think I'm going to have to finish up the video then. Right, just very quickly before it shuts off, so I've got power going into it now. Now check this out, on the fan, which is not spinning, I do have 12 volts, 11.9 volts. Middle pin is ground, so I'm going to have nothing there. But yeah, the left one, so is it the left one that governs when the fan works or not? It's just cut off now. So there's nothing on the left one, but I've got 11 volts on the 12 volts, 11.9 volts on that one there. So why isn't that fan spinning constantly? I'll put this on as well, just in case it makes any difference. So it must be this white wire here that actually tells the fan when to work and when not to work. So I suppose what I could try to do is try to trace the white wire back, because we've got 12 volts. I've been doing all my tracing from here, but that is going, we have got 12 volts there. Can't be ground, it must be this white wire. So maybe I should be trying to trace this white wire to see where that ends up, and that might give me an idea, because obviously the fan's cutting off straight away even though there's 12 volts here. So whatever it is that's telling the fan to work is not doing that, is it? Because that fan should be you know, whirring all the time, especially when you just turn it on. I think it should anyway. Well, I'm going to follow this white wire, see if I can work out what's going on with that. Okay, so I've been tracing this mystery wire here, and eventually I found out where it goes. It took me absolutely ages. So what we have is, we have 12 volts going to, that's all in contact with, you know, the big 12 volt prong, the one from the power supply. Middle one here is just ground, and then this one here actually comes up here, and then it goes through this little resistor and it goes onto pin, whatever it is, pin 4 or something off this chip here. There. So it goes into this chip here. So now I don't know where this chip goes to. Like when I look at it here, it just kind of disappears. So basically we have, it goes off, some of it goes to here. Where does it go through there? Don't know, it just seems to go here, but obviously it must then go to feed other bits on the board. So remember, multi-layer board, so it's very hard to work out exactly where they go to. But yeah, at least could it be this chip that's gone faulty? And it's not telling this to go on, or is this chip not getting the power? Because, for example, I definitely know on this board here, I'm not saying it's the same chip, but on the, no, not that board, on this board here, I know this is a lot older, this PlayStation here. This one here, which is a bigger chip, but it's also got similar markings on it, is some of the pins do go into the APU here. Some of these pins go down off into here. Weird thing is, I couldn't actually find these pins coming up on here, because what I did is I took off the South Bridge chip, and you can see how many balls there are underneath that. There's absolutely loads. But what I've been doing is, I've just been like going across here, for example, rubbing this, and then kind of rubbing this, and seeing if it comes up anywhere. And I can't find it coming up into here. That might be just a ground, hold on. Yeah, it's a ground. Yeah. Yeah, just ground again, you see. I don't know whether I should try swapping that chip over, or am I just wasting my time, because I haven't got it. None of it's really making any sense. I'm just tracing this wire, but who said that this wire is faulty? You know, there's 12 volts going into the fan. Maybe Maybe this needs to get a signal from here, which then this gets a signal from the APU or something like that. So, but I suppose I could swap it. The only problem is that the markings between this one and this one are actually different. But they do look to be the same size, so maybe the marking's not that important. Maybe they are a similar chip with just different markings on. Because this one I think was I think this is A04, this is A01. Something like that anyway. Yeah, I think what I might do is, I think I might go to bed. It's 3 o'clock in the morning here and I've been on this for hours and hours and hours. See, the thing is, if I definitely knew it was this chip, for example, if I seen a burnt bit on it, I would risk my board. I just really don't want to break my board in the hope of fixing this one here. So I think it's just too risky. Yeah, I'm going to go to bed and then I'm going to start again afresh tomorrow. Right, curiosity got the better of me. I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep if I didn't change this over, so I've swapped it over. Just want to double check there. That looks a bit dodgy. No, maybe not. Maybe it was just a shadow. Yeah. Okay, so I've swapped it over. Now the markings are different. See, this says A00 Col 2, and the one I took off, so the original one on this board said A01 or A04 Col 2. So I'm not sure whether that's just sort of some kind of like serial number type thing, or whether that is the actual chip. But you know what? I'm going to give it a go, because really after this there's nothing more I can do. So let's pop this back in now. Right, I'm plugging it in. Oh, right, okay, this is the most hopeful I've been. Here we go. Nothing. Ah, nothing. Ah, disappointed. I actually thought we might have... I thought that chip might be the same. It's not, for all I know. Maybe it's married to the board. Ah, that's a shame. Because I'm still none the wiser now. Is that chip faulty, or... Yeah, there's nothing there whatsoever. Is that the faulty chip here, or has it got nothing to do with that whatsoever? Do you know what I could do? Maybe I could look up that item code on the online, and I can see what that chip does. Maybe there's a spec sheet, a data sheet for that. Okay, I did notice a loose pin, funny enough, on the one that the fans go into. You know, from this resistor up here. Alright, let's try that now. Here it goes. No, nothing. So that 5 volt must go through there as well, because it's this is the same as when we removed that chip, isn't it? Nothing at all. Now there's a chance the chip's faulty, because remember I've taken it off a faulty board already. Or is it just the fact that there's different markings on the chip, so it could have the pin outs could be completely different on that. Yeah, we've got nothing here at all. Right, okay, I'm going to continue with this tomorrow. Right, it's the next day now, and I looked up this little chip here, the one here, that I took off and then put one on from a different board, and this is actually called a Syscon. And a Syscon chip is a system controlled chip, and basically there's next to no information about this online. It's I've seen one forum calling it the mystery chip, but basically when system control chips generally, I'm not just talking about the PlayStation 4, but generally they power up other components and communicate with them. So that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Because we haven't got anything going on in this fan apart from the first couple of seconds, yet we have 12 volts there. But because this white wire is not being told to turn on from here, then the fan just cuts out after a couple of seconds. So I am taking a guess that maybe the Syscon chip here is faulty. Now, I believe that these are married to the board, because I think this has also something to do with the firmware updates. So I don't think you can just swap them between one board and another. So really, what can I do with this now? Nothing. I'm going to take this one off. I'm going to put the original Syscon chip back on. I'm taking a guess that it's either going to be something to do with this or the South Bridge. I don't believe it's the APU. I think it's other things that are not working, because we haven't got power at the USB, we haven't got the fans spinning. I'm thinking that there's other things that are wrong here rather than the APU. Now, the very fact that it failed when it was downloading a game makes me think that maybe it is something to do with the Syscon. Maybe the PlayStation 4 went through an update at the time and something went wrong. See, it might not necessarily be a hardware related thing as such, meaning like a physical wire or a diode or something. It might be the information stored on this chip here. Well, not this one, but obviously this one here, the original one that was on it. It might be the information stored on here which has gone faulty, in which case, how would you even begin to fix that? See, without schematics, it really is impossible. Now, I'm not one for reading schematics, because everything that I do my videos on, it's very rare to have schematics, so I haven't actually learnt how to do them. But from watching a few Lewis Rosman videos, then see, if schematics were available from this, it would be easier, because what you could do is, for example, on that, it would say where the voltage goes into this chip, and it would tell you what voltage it is. And then you see, you could measure, well, the thing is you can't measure that because it's going to turn off straight away. But with this one, to be fair, it does last for 55 seconds. So in this instance, you could measure the voltage going in. If you haven't got that, you know then it might not be this chip. So you would look to see what generates that voltage. And if it's the Southbridge chip, you might be able to, for example, well, you probably couldn't because it's probably on a BGA ball going underneath, but again, it may come up somewhere else. You know, it might go through a resistor or something like that, or a capacitor, in which case then you might be able to measure the voltage there to see if it's coming out of the Southbridge chip. If it's not, then you see maybe you could measure the voltage going into the Southbridge chip, or maybe the Southbridge chip might have various different voltages going in. I'm not saying it would be easy, but it would be easier. Really, with this now, it's impossible. And what am I going to do? Am I going to risk damaging my board by taking off the components on here? Yes, I could look at this board here and possibly take off a few more voltage regulators and put them around the place, and that may fix the problem. The problem is, it's just guessing all the time. There's no actual kind of proof behind anything. You're just blindly swapping components in the hope that something may work. So I think with this one, I think I've taken it to the level that I can take it. I'm going to put this one back on. Fingers crossed it will still turn on for 55 seconds and then turn off. And then it might be able to become a community fix. So for example, the world's a big place. There's going to be people with a lot more experience than me on this one, on these ones here. So they might be able to say, Vince, I had one of these in my shop the other day and it turned out it was this voltage regulator here, or it was this MOSFET under here, or it was something, you know, it 100% is a Southbridge issue because it stays on for 55 seconds and then it cuts out. Does this one stay on for 55 seconds because the chip's overheating, because the fan's not working? What I may try to do is, I may actually try to put voltage from a power supply into the fan while having it running to see if it will last for longer than 55 seconds. Is it cutting out at 55 seconds? Because that's how long it takes for the APU to overheat, and then the power supply kills it as a safety feature. Don't know, maybe I could try that as well. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do now. Is there's no point in filming. I'm just going to swap that over there, and yeah, I might mess around with the fan just to see if it lasts for longer, just purely out of curiosity, and then yeah, I'll be finishing up the video then. Okay, so I'll put that chip back in it, this little Syscon chip here, and it's doing exactly the same as it was before. So it's time for me to end the video now. Now, although it's been a failure, it hasn't really been a failure because I've changed many components over and it's still the same level as it was before, which for me is great because it means now this might turn into a community fix. So hopefully when people watch this, they might be able to give me some ideas, possibly of how it can be fixed, or maybe this particular one is unfixable if it's something to do with the data held on that chip, that Syscon chip. Or, for example, even if it was a fault on the Southbridge, I'm not going to, those balls are far too fine for me to be able to just, you know, get them back on. You can see how small they are there compared to my finger. The size of my finger there's probably 100 balls under that finger. So, yeah, I am going to leave this one for now and do a revisit on it. Now, interestingly, I unplugged the connector for the fan. You know, there's 3 wires. We know that one's a ground and we know one has 12 volts. When I put my bench power supply into it, went all the way from 0 up to 12 volts. Nothing happens. Funny enough, as soon as I put the bench power supply on and turned it, if I started at 0, 1, 2, 3, wouldn't do anything. But if I quickly went up to 5 or 6, it would twitch around, just, you know, just a tiny little bit like that, and then stop. Now, I didn't want to put 12 volts into the white wire because personally I haven't measured 12 volts on that white wire. I'm wondering, could it be some sort of 3-phase motor or something? Don't know. But what I've done is, I've got a hairdryer, and I've been spinning this the correct way. So basically, when it spins, I'll turn it on now. You can see where when it starts. Well, saying that, it must spin. I suppose it'd be spinning that way, wouldn't it? But either way, no matter which way it's spinning, it's still going to be generating airflow around here, isn't it? Even if it was spinning the wrong way, it would still be sucking air through this way, although there's not a huge amount of flow. So even if it's spinning wrong, it would still generate some kind of airflow through here, wouldn't it? And it's still shutting off after 55 seconds. So it's got nothing to do with the chip overheating, it's something else. So watch this now. I'm going to try to start it at past here, when it gets to 30. And I'll fast forward through it. Right, okay, hold on. Doesn't always go first time. There we go. Right, so it's going now. Look, which way is it spinning? Right, it was spinning that way round. So now let's get this on. I'm going to put cold air on it by pressing this button here. Now watch this. There you go. So you can see at 55 seconds again, it's gone off here. I didn't look at the exact time, and I did take the hairdryer off, but previously when I did it, it was on perfectly. So the disc spins up perfectly. It's like some of the systems getting power and the rest of the system's not getting power, which still makes me believe that this may be fixable down the line. So right now, with my knowledge, this is definitely not fixable. But if it's not an APU problem, and it might not be a Southbridge problem, then really it could be fixable, unless it's a problem with the Syscon, in which case, and if it's married to the board, there's not much I can do about that. So unfortunately, I tried my very, very, very best on this. I really wanted to get it to work, but it wasn't to be. That's the way it goes sometimes. You can't always fix things. Even if a professional had this, this may not be a fixable one. Even if the APU and the Southbridge was to be rebored and put on there, again, in my opinion, I don't think they would work. I'll tell you why. I've put quite a bit of pressure down on these chips here, and you think if it was just a dry, cracked joint, that by me putting pressure down, it would do something different. I'm not saying it would work perfectly, but you think it would go on for a bit longer or overheat or something straight away. So that is it for this video. Unfortunately, I couldn't get it working. Please, 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 if you think you know what's wrong with it, add it down to the comments. Please don't say things like put a washer underneath those things. It's that's not going to work in this instance here. But if you fix these for a living and you've come across this fault and you think you know what it is, then let me know. Even if you think it's beyond my skills, still let me know, because I have got a cheapy reball thing from China. I could try and reball the Southbridge chip on here if I've got nothing to lose. It's junk, it's not working anyway, it's just going to be used for spares. So even if I was to ruin it, I'm personally not going to send this off to a professional to pay £100 odd to get it fixed, because if you add up the price of the spares of this plus £100, you might as well buy a new one. And my mate's not going to be out of pocket anyway, because he's going to be getting a working PlayStation 4, albeit it is the older model. So yeah, that is it for this video. If you found it any bit interesting, please give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe for more Trying to Fix videos. Take care, bye now.